The shape tool is used to edit shapes and also to adjust text. So if I were to click on the shape tool and then click on this text, you'll see that it gives me a couple different things. It gives me white dots in front of each character. It gives me this option here, and then it gives me this option here. This one here, if I click and drag to the right, it will give me more character spacing. If I hold Shift while I do that, it will give me word spacing. So you need to let go of the left mouse button before you let go of Shift for that to apply. If I undo and drag while holding Shift but let go of Shift first, then it will actually revert back to how it was originally, just doing character spacing. You can also click on an individual character and drag it anywhere you want. If you want to make sure that it stays in line, drag and hold Control while you do that so that it constrains it to a straight line. You can also use your nudge to move it. So right now, because the nudge is set to 1/8 of an inch, if I were to click here and hit my left arrow, it would move it 1/8 of an inch over to the left. I'll just undo that. You can also select multiple ones. So if I click and drag a box around it, it will select just these ones. And I can right click or left click to nudge it as well. When it comes to objects, curves, rectangles, that sort of thing, the shape tool is also used for changing those. This is actually a rectangle we created using the rectangle tool. Rectangles have special properties. You'll notice up here on the property bar that you can change the corners: round, scalloped, chamfered, and this is only going to show up if we've got a rectangle. You can see down here it says rectangle. If I click on the other object that we created, it was created as a curve, and so we don't have those same options there. So if I click on this one with my shape tool, it gives me the ability to round those edges by clicking and dragging them. I'll undo that, switch it first to a scalloped corner, and do the same thing. So you can interactively create scalloped corners, chamfered corners, rounded corners on your rectangles. You can also type in a number if you wanted to. So 0.5 inches and hit enter, and it would do 0.5 inches. Because it's locked here, it's going to change all of them together. This only works, however, when you're using a rectangle shape. If I tried the same thing here, clicking and dragging is actually going to move the node. You can see that the nodes are white. When I click on this one, they're black, and that's telling me that those are special corners here. If I wanted to edit this shape, because it is curves, we've got 4 different nodes. We can click and drag and move that node anywhere. You can also double click on the line to create a node. These are lines, so if we needed to, we can change it to a curve instead. Even though down here on the bottom it says it's a curve, even though it's considered a curve, certain curves can be considered line segments. So we can change line segments to curved segments in order to curve this out if we wanted to. This one's a line segment, so if I click and drag on it, it actually moves the whole segment. So I would have to click, change it to a curve, and then it would let me bend it. Back to this one, it won't let me do the same thing because this is a rectangle. So in order to get this to work the same way, I'd have to right click on the object and say convert to curves or Control Q. Once I convert it to curves, then it will work the same way. Same thing, I can double click, I can click on it and change it to a curve, or I can right click on it, change it to a curve, and that way I can manipulate it differently. If you have multiple objects, you can select one object using the shape tool, hold shift and click on the other object. Your first one will have a blue outline and your secondary object would have a red outline. You're able to grab multiple nodes at the same time and move them. I'll undo that. I can, if I try to nudge it though, it's only going to nudge the primary object and not the secondary ones. The last thing with text in the shape tool is if we were to have multiple lines of text, and I'm just going to delete these panels or those lines to get them out of the way. If I were to hit enter and do a new line of text, the shape tool will allow us to interactively move our line spacing up or down. The same way that this changes character spacing, this will do line spacing for us.